What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe.
Ross Jackson, our guy locked on Saints Network, joins us now to talk about yesterday's tough defeat to the Detroit Lions and what's next for the New Orleans Saints. Ross, always a pleasure, man. We appreciate you joining us.
Hey, buddy. Glad to be here, dude. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I apologize that it's just me, like Mario said when he called you. He said, hey, it's just Jake. No T-Bob today, so I do apologize.
Man. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Actually, I'm sorry to you, man. Jeez. What a workplace environment.
I know. I mean, it's tough. It's tough out here in the streets, Ross. Hey, just like it was tough, unfortunately, in the Superdome when the clock hit triple zeros. That game, it's tough to describe, and you don't have these very often in the NFL where you get down by 21 in the snap of a finger, and then you find your way back. Typically, that game ends 42-10 or 45-3 or whatever it might be, because in the NFL, it's just so damn tough to come back from a deficit like that. But the Saints do come back, and they showed a lot of fight. They showed a lot of grit in that third quarter. Even in the fourth quarter, it just wasn't enough. And even some of the things, Ross, that they needed to get better at, like red zone scoring, I mean, they were great. Mm-hmm. And so, like, when you look at this game, it's going to be tough to take any value from it, although I do think it is in there. I do think with some of the things that you did, there is value in this game. And we knew this game was going to be the most difficult down the stretch run of opponents that you were going to have. But also, Ross, you know this, when you have a comeback like that and it falls short, that one lasts for about 4 or 5 days after a normal loss.
Yeah, I mean, that'll linger for sure. But I think that one thing that you can walk away from this game feeling really good about if you're a Saints fan is that this team has not given up. They have not quit. I've seen a lot of sort of, accusations around this team. And some of those accusations include, that the roster has given up on the coaching, or that the roster has given up on each other, or that star players are giving up and stuff like that. And that usually tends to be, a fan narrative that happens when a team has a losing record. Like, that's not out of the ordinary. But I think that when you look at what this New Orleans Saints team did in this game against the Detroit Lions, in their ability to come back and make this a game, to lose by only 5 points, losing, that's going to dominate the conversation for many reasons, because that's what's going to matter by the time the season's over. But I think what you saw in that team was a lot of fight. You saw a lot of positive nature from this team. And really, you saw a team that didn't necessarily, after a certain point, kind of stopped getting in its own way. And I think that once they kind of understood what it was that Detroit was trying to do over on the offensive side, then you saw the defense settle in, then you were able to dig yourself out of that 21-point hole, all of that stuff. The biggest thing is, can this team start to figure out what an offense is trying to do before they step out on the field, so that they can get these things kind of rolling a little bit earlier, as opposed to dropping to a 21-point deficit and then clawing and scratching way back.
All right, Ross, in this game, we did see Derek Carr go out with injury, gets landed on there. What do you think it's going to look like as far as a timetable for him? Obviously, he's dealt with injuries all season long and tried to kind of fight back a couple of different times. We know the AC joint was something that he came back quick from. What's the latest you're hearing there? Do we expect, Carr to be able to go out there and play next week, or do you think it's something where he could miss some time?
Yeah, I'll preface with Derek Carr is a tough SOB, man. Like, he's one of these guys that, like, normal timetables aren't usually ones that apply to Derek Carr. So what I'll mention is that, he's in concussion protocol.
Right.
That may be the thing that's going to take, that is so unpredictable, right? There's no specifically designated in-out time for concussion protocol. For instance, we just watched Chris Olave, one of only, I think, less than a handful of players clear concussion protocol in just a week. Right. Yeah. Usually it's about 2 weeks or so. We've seen Derek Carr clear concussion protocol over the bye week in time to be there. I think the big concern here for me is that this is his second time in concussion protocol in 4 weeks. That's a little scary, right? Yes. And you're about to go up against a 1-11 Carolina Panthers team. Is there really a reason to rush back here this week, especially with the success that you found with Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill, regardless of who's under center, regardless of who's at quarterback, Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, those guys can get it done. So do you feel a little bit more comfortable giving Derek Carr an extended amount of time to clear protocols to get through all of this stuff? That's going to be a conversation to be had. Now, he's also dealing with a shoulder injury as well as a back injury. We don't know if the shoulder injury is connected to the original AC joint,
Right.
but that seems likely. So those are going to be two other things we're going to kind of be watching here throughout the day. I expect we'll get an update when we talk to Dennis Allen later on today. But, we'll see. Sometimes these things take a little bit of time.
If Carr is not able to go in this game, and you're right, 2 and 4 weeks, I mean, that's kind of scary territory.
Mm-hmm.
And, throughout my career, I had concussions in different seasons. I don't think I ever had 2 in one season, but I certainly had teammates that went through that. I mean, a guy like Wes Welker was a teammate of mine in Denver. I mean, that was something that really kind of changed his career with the concussions. Then he had to wear a special helmet. I mean, it is something that is very serious, and so that is something to kind of watch. It's not just this concussion. It's going back a couple of weeks and having 2, so it's a great point to point that out. If he's not able to go, what does it look like? Jameis came in. Now, the pass he completed to Chris Olave, two Lions that had an opportunity at that one. In fact, if it doesn't get tipped, I think that Detroit probably goes the other way for 6. But what does it look like? Like, do you expect it to be, hey, Jameis is the guy. He's going to be the quarterback that goes out there. They're going to keep Taysom in the Taysom Hill role, and they're going to go try to beat, like you mentioned, a 1-win Carolina Panther team.
Yeah. I assume that pass, by the way, from Jameis to Chris Olave was sort of the universe paying back the Saints for the Jordan Addison tip and catch against the Minnesota Vikings a couple weeks ago, and probably was what Michael Thomas was referencing when he tweeted that God was with Jameis. And so I think that, like, when you look at this game going into next week, I think you can roll with Jameis Winston as your starting quarterback and then continue to do. I mean, we saw a really heavy rotation of Taysom Hill yesterday, right? I mean, He played 16 snaps at quarterback. I think you can maintain that. I think that should be the Saints' game plan moving through the rest of the season, regardless of who's your starting quarterback, Derek Carr or Jameis Winston. And so I wouldn't be surprised. I certainly have said, and I said it on my show yesterday, and I got roasted for it, but it's fine. That, like, I think that Jameis Winston should start next week. That has nothing to do with Derek Carr's ability. I mean, Derek helped them fight back into this game. Like, maybe if he doesn't get knocked out, maybe even they win the game. I mean, we saw a lot of the fight that we saw from this team started from Derek Carr. And so I give him a lot of credit for what he did yesterday. But with this concussion, not having a need to rush him back, I think it makes sense to just be ready to start Jameis next weekend. And with that, you can run your offense. You know that he has been able to play in your system before. He's won in your system before. You use a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara, use a heavy dose of Taysom Hill, just like you did yesterday. And I think you've got yourself a winning formula in terms of how you can win a game without Derek Carr next weekend. I don't think that a 1-11 team without its head coach is one that you look at and go, well, we got to rush to get our starting quarterback back, right? So that's kind of the way that I look at it. It might be more pragmatic for the last 4 games of the season to actually forego or at least be careful with Derek Carr's return this weekend.
Yeah,
if
when
he clears and, like, everything's good, then fine. You know what I mean?
Right. And when you look at Carolina, they're much better against the pass than they are, stopping the run. And so, like, there's a game plan certainly that could come together where you do feature the guys that you were just talking about. And gosh, I mean, watching AK run, you can tell, like, he is trying everything that he has to go out there and put it on for New Orleans, put it on for the Saints. And you can tell there's a frustration there. Like, he tries to hide it, but just being in locker rooms, seeing guys' body language, he's in it. He is fully in, but you can tell there's frustrations there. And I go back and I just watched the first half. I have not done, on the second viewing. I haven't watched the full game yet, but like Cesar Ruiz, yet again, man, he's a guy that really is struggling run blocking right now. And you look across the board, like I thought there was times that the tight end position struggled blocking the run. I hate to say this, feels like it's something I'd never say. The fullback position, Prentice, he struggled in the short snaps that he had. He only had, I think, 8 or 9 snaps, but he struggled. There's not a lot there, Ross. I mean, you look across the board. There's some guys that are actually, doing their job. Eric McCoy's been fantastic the last, I'd say, 5 weeks in the run game. I ram-checked to get okay, but there is a lot that is left to be desired out there in the run game. I don't know where to tell these running backs where to go.
Yeah, it's really challenging, and it's interesting to watch because it seems like all the blocking comes together on the Taysom Hill runs because it's a simple gap scheme, right? You go out there and you see the guy that's in front of you, you go block that guy, and they seem to be able to do that really well. And we've seen the Saints kind of transition to being a little bit more of that that man blocking scheme in the run game over the course of the season. Whereas in the past, they've been a little bit more sort of zone blocking. So the difference being man blocking, you're blocking the guy that's directly in front of you. Zone blocking, you're blocking the guy. That's kind of the easiest way to explain it for folks that aren't familiar with the terminology. And so, what you're looking at is, an offensive line that has to move in unison, that has to be in lock. You have that read step off to the side first so that you can kind of read the pressure in the defense and then move there. Maybe that's where the struggle has been. And that's what equates to, like, look, that's some of Alvin Kamara's best game is in the zone run where he gets to pick a gap, right? Bang bouncer or bend. And so he does a really good job with all those things, but it doesn't seem like the Saints have been able to protect that very well in the run game. So I think that maybe that's a little bit of something in terms of the disconnection that you're seeing there, because they block extremely well for Taysom Hill, but it seems like it's an entirely different blocking scheme and an entirely different blocking sort of like set of assignments maybe that leads to that.
Yeah, to Ross's point, they had 36 runs yesterday. They ran 7 outside zones. They ran 10 inside zones. And they didn't have success. The success they had, they came on the power. They ran 4 of them. They ran a counter even. I was excited to see it. I'm like, oh, we're going to get more than one.
It's all counter, yeah.
we got a counter, and we got a couple of different man schemes, and they certainly had more success there. It's just something they've got to realize. They've got to be able to go out there. They're just not great right now, certainly blocking that outside zone, and they've had way more success.
And I will say that, like, being very good as a man blocking team is not a bad thing, right?
No.
Like, that's like go out there and punch them in the mouth kind of game plan. That's okay. Like, if you can go out there and you can punch that defensive line in the mouth, go and do that. So there is something to, do they need to get better in the zone blocking scheme, or also do they just need to kind of buy in a little bit more to their ability as a man blocking scheme and just go out there and punch a defense in the mouth for a day?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love that. I mean, I know for me, like I wanted to know, hey, we're going downhill, right? I know exactly who I have. The puller, you're coming for him. I'm reading your block. I'm going to this in-man on line of scrimmage on power. We're going to kick him out. We're going to be physical. So I hope that's something the Saints see and they try to take advantage of next week against the Carolina Panthers. Ross, you're the man. We appreciate your time as always. Look forward to the next conversation.
Yeah, man, real pleasure. Appreciate you having me on. Take care, stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon, bud.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.